morning. My name is Bruce Nelson, and behind me is a field that I like to take walks with my dog in the mornings. That's Champ. And this morning, as we were walking through this field, I was thinking about wrestling. I was thinking about how so many of us today are wrestling, all of us really, with the unbelievable events in our world. We're wrestling with concerns about health and safety and people that are dying. We're wrestling with the changes in our economy and fears over money and jobs and wondering, how is this going to work out? What's going to take place next, and where is God in these times? Many of us are wrestling. And as I was thinking about that, I was reminded back when I was a freshman in high school, I was a wrestler on the wrestling team. I was in the whopping 88-pound weight class, just a little guy. But I remember it was the toughest sport that I have ever been involved in. For 3 or 4 minutes, you're using every muscle in your body. You are fighting for your life. You're trying to get the upper hand and not get knocked down. And I would remember many times after a wrestling match, I'd go outside the gym, sit in the corridor, and just hyperventilate. And I'd even sweat out my eyes because wrestlers don't cry. And I was thinking about wrestling, and then I remembered there was a guy named Jacob who is also a wrestler. Right out of Genesis chapter 32, we learn that Jacob, which means heel grabber, that's what his name means, he was a wrestler from even in the womb. He was trying to grab his brother Esau's heel because they were twins, trying to get out in front, but he didn't. And then years later, after Jacob had swindled his brother and his father out of Esau's birthright, Jacob was standing next to a river and scared to death because he got the news that Esau was going to come after him with 400 men. And in that moment, Jacob was terrified. And so he took his entire estate, he took his wives and his family and his livestock and sent them to the other side of the river. And then he took a caravan with gold and silver and livestock and wealth and sent them with some men to go meet Esau, trying to assuage his fear or his anger towards Jacob. And it says in Genesis chapter 32 that he was desperately fearful. And then a couple verses later it says, and then he prayed. And for Jacob in that moment, neither really worked, because even though he sent this bribery, he knew his best laid plan may not work, and he was terrified of what could happen. And even after praying, he didn't have the faith to believe he was really okay. And so God did something amazing. He sent a man who was a representation of God himself to wrestle with him all night long till daybreak. And as this man wrestled with Jacob struggling against him, literally, physically, with his muscles, and this man wrestling against him, it says an amazing thing. It says that this man was not able to overpower Jacob. And I thought, well, that's funny, because, it's like my dad's stronger than your dad, my God's stronger than yours. If this was God he was wrestling, and God could easily take out Jacob. And what we learn is God would not change Jacob's will. God required that Jacob would get to a place to truly trust in him. So it says that after he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. And so God wounded Jacob to ultimately heal him. And so finally, with this hip out of socket, there's no way he could win. Any wrestler knows if your hip goes, you drive all your power from your hips, and there is no way you can win. So Jacob just collapses onto the man. Those wrestling arms that were fighting against him go limp, and he just hugs him and he says, I will not let go of you until you bless me. Jacob says, okay, I get it. I am only going to trust in you. I'm going to look to you to bless me. I'm going to look to you alone to protect me. Any wrestlers out there? Anybody wrestling with anything today and trying your best ideas and your best laid plans and trying to look to what you can bring in strength, and you're praying to God, God just says, you just embrace me. And if we hold on to him and not let go of him, we will find rest in the midst of our wrestling. I pray whatever you're struggling with, that you will trust in the Almighty God and find rest in your wrestling. Hey, champ, come on.